Hey everyone, I'm John Carter with the Boca Voice, and today I'm joined by Stephanie Terra and House Representative Emily Slosberg, and we are actually filming right here in her office in District 91. Emily, welcome back to the show.
John, welcome to District 91, and Stephanie, welcome to House District 91.
It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, so exciting.
So, this is your first legislative session, and this has been definitely an interesting legislative session. So, tell me, what were some of your goals going into this legislative session, and what did you get out of it?
So, going in, my priority for District 91, two priorities: one, traffic safety, and two, senior citizens. And while there was some good, there was also some bad. So, I'll start with the bad. I do this because I got into this because I lost my twin sister in a car crash. And I don't want other people to go through what I did. So I went up saying, filing a few bills to make texting while driving a primary offense. Because currently you cannot be pulled over for texting and driving. An officer can witness you texting while driving and cannot pull you over. So, because it's only a secondary offense. So First, I filed a local bill that would apply only in Palm Beach County to make it primary in school zones. Then I filed a primary enforcement for 18 and under, House Bill 69. And then I primary co-sponsored House Bill 47, which made it a primary offense for everybody. And then I filed an amendment that would make it only apply in school zones, 20 to 30 minutes a day. When parents are dropping their kids off at school, they're setting the example. And there's crossing guards in the streets. It's a very dangerous time to be texting and driving. And unfortunately, none of them got a hearing. None of my bills even got a hearing. Mm-hmm. I will say they did do a workshop. They had law enforcement come and they had traffic safety officials come and they workshopped the distracted driving issue. But I don't want a workshop. I want my bill agenda,
Absolutely.
I want something to come of it. So, next session, I do plan to file the same amount of bills to do everything possible that I can. Because Florida is only one of a handful of states. And this year, I think, 7 states got stricter with their texting and driving laws. And they're sitting on the governor's desk of 7 different states. So, Florida is like way behind. And this is legislation that affects every single Floridian and our guests. So it's huge. Not to mention, death rates are up 30% among young drivers.
I was just going to say, as a millennial, I could really resonate with exactly what you're saying, with this type of adversity. And, I feel like it's really amazing because sometimes with adversity, you have the opportunity to create legislation and take action. And I feel as though you're really being proactive rather than reactive and trying to draw this initiative. And it's really unfortunate that
it can't get a hearing. It is.
Yeah.
It's incredibly frustrating. And I guess I think we spoke previously, and going in, I was optimistic, and I'm still optimistic that this session, this upcoming session I have a chance of getting it passed, and I'm not going to quit. I'm definitely not going to quit.
Just keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
We find in Boca Raton, we've had traffic and congestion has been a huge conversation for the municipal election and going back further than that. And a lot of research is starting to show that distracted driving, texting while driving, is causing a lot of congestion. People, looking down at red lights, not seeing when it turns green, and
100%. It's not only deadly, but it's also causing backups on our roads. It's horrible for anybody. And let me tell you another thing. A poll went out asking Floridians whether they support a primary ban. About 80% of Floridians support making texting while driving a primary offense. So, it's time for the other legislators, to hear the will of the people. It's huge.
yeah.
So that was the negative part, was not getting my safety bill. However, on the positive side, I did get Senior Smiles Project into the budget, and it escaped the veto pen. It was an appropriation for $500,000 for Florida dental schools. And it was very interesting. So what I did was, when I started off as a state rep, I wanted to visit all the independent and assisted living facilities in District 91. And there's a lot, because House District 91 is the second oldest in age out of all the House districts. So, on almost every corner you could find an assisted living facility or independent. And I went and I toured and I spoke to the people. And I found that many of them had access to medical doctors. The doctor would come in once or twice a month and they had their appointment. However, there was no access, or there was a lot of barriers to access for dental. No dentists would come in, and the transportation to the dental facility was, in most cases it wasn't, it was hard. They'd have to figure out, call a family member, or some didn't have family members. So this Senior Smiles project is a mobile unit, and it's being run by, it'll be Nova Dental. And it creates a geriatric track for the dental students. So they have hands-on geriatric training. And it's really important because other states already have this. They already implement a geriatric training or a geriatric track. But the state of Florida, we don't have, not one dental school has this, which is surprising because the state of Florida is home to the most senior citizens out of the country. And this is something that it's very useful because the dental students will have the actual hands-on training, which it's necessary for them to, because that's where a lot of the clientele will be, so.
And it assists our,
at the same time.
everyone has family members that really need that kind of care. So that's a really good program that has thankfully escaped the veto pen. And what we're talking about, the veto pen, the legislature, especially the House, had a very different agenda than the governor this year on things such as Enterprise Florida and Visit Florida, and the funding that you guys allocated towards that. Now, what would you say was the biggest reason for the difference in the governor and speaker's agendas?
The governor was very insistent on getting funds for both Enterprise Florida and Visit Florida. While Speaker Corcoran, he didn't like the fact that he could not get the expenditures of Visit Florida without filing a lawsuit. So in order to find out how much money is being spent by Visit Florida, he had to file a lawsuit to get the contract that was between Visit Florida and Pitbull. So, this is the state's money. Why should he have to go and file a lawsuit to find out how much is being paid from the state's coffers? It doesn't, you really shouldn't be doing business in the dark like that. So I think that was an issue that rightfully so, because it's the state's money. Why should we be doing business in the dark? So I think a main concern of Speaker Corcoran was to make sure that if Visit Florida, he does say that we do need funding. It's important to have funding for tourism. However, we should be able to have a transparent process or accountability on how we're spending those monies. And so I think that was really an issue of contention between the speaker and the governor. And at the end of the day, the budget that was actually passed was, obviously more friendly for the speaker, because it didn't give as much funding to Visit Florida and Enterprise Florida. But since the veto pen came out and we're going back tomorrow, things are going to change.
Things are going to change. Absolutely. So if you were, chair of appropriations or speaker yourself, and what would you see more of allocated in the budget? What would you see less? Where is the Representative Slosberg budget?
Well, honestly, I'm a graduate of FAU, and I would put a lot more money back into FAU, into the FAU Tech Runway, and the other projects that were just recently vetoed. 100%. I would also obviously put money back to the per student funding in public education, because the last budget we only increased per pupil spending $24, which is nothing, and we're going back, and there was a plan in place to increase it up to $100 more per pupil, because we're still way behind in comparison to other states on what they spend per child.
Now, one legislation that affects a lot of districts in this area that a lot of people were happy to see make it to the governor's desk is the sober homes legislation. Can you tell us a little bit about that and your stance on the whole situation?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a major epidemic, especially in Palm Beach County and East Delray. They had a proliferation of sober homes coming up. And those sober homes, some of the operators were just doing horrible things, such as, so let's say a person or like a young person is addicted to drugs in New Jersey. They would send, that person down here to get clean. That person would sit in a medical treatment center for 30 days or 60 days, get clean, and the next step would be to put them at something called a sober home. So it's not the actual medical treatment place, but just a sober home. So where they're supposed to stay clean. So what the sober home operators would do would be, so they're renting out 8 rooms, and they put the person in there. Well, they would be giving, some of them would be giving that drug addicted person drugs to relapse and whatnot, and have a deal with treatment centers to send them back to a treatment center and use that insurance money, and they would be kind of getting a kickback. And it was called patient brokering, but there was nothing defining it in the law what patient brokering was. So an important, important piece of legislation that was recently passed was the definition of patient brokering, and not allow, so it kind of would stop this behavior, because the young person is coming down to Florida to get clean, or to Delray to get clean, and there's a lot of money to be made when they're relapsing and going back to a treatment facility center, because insurance is going to be paying for it. So the money is flowing.
Definitely a broken system, and we're seeing the worst end of it.
This is, yes. And so, getting this patient brokering defined was incredibly important. So now we could start holding these sober home operators and the people that were doing this, we can start holding accountable. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Stephanie, do you have any questions for Representative Slosberg?
Yeah, so it's so exciting that you're representing this portion of South Florida, and I was just a little bit curious, what are your short-term and long-term goals while you're going to be in office, and future plans?
Short-term, every day, it's interesting, every single day we have people, constituents, coming into this office and asking for help for one thing or another. And I actually just 2 weeks ago had Bruce come in, and he said, we have a major issue in our neighborhood. And I said, what is it, Bruce? It's like, I'm scared, and some other people are scared to go to the pool because there's a bully. There's a bully in our neighborhood. He just bullies everybody, and threatens everybody. And, it makes the situation very hostile. You call the police, and the police, there's nothing you can really do. Right. Because it's just words, really. And so the guy is still there, and it's continuing to occur. So he's like, they have laws for bullying for students, but they don't have anything for bullying for seniors. So I said, you know what, Bruce, you're right. Let me look if other states have anything on the books for senior bullying. And interestingly enough, only one state does, and it's the state of Missouri, which is Missouri. But so I'm going to try to craft legislation with Bruce and others. And as I'm going through, I find out it's not just that neighborhood. There's other neighborhoods that are kind of experience the same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be, I don't want I have to figure out the right, mechanism for penalizing. I don't want to say maybe criminal or not. I'm not sure. How to do this yet, right. But we're working together to craft something. So I guess my first short-term goal would be getting a anti-bullying of seniors legislation together and filed.
It's really interesting how one voice can truly make a huge difference and possibly craft legislation that will impact every state one day.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. I'm very into grassroots legislation.
Yeah. Because that's how it really all started with our government, and just going back to everything.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm always reminded of the song, I'm Just a Bill, and it always starts as someone's idea and then brought to the legislator. So it's incredible that you've taken over this district and you're still fighting the people's fight we support you in your efforts to do that. Is there anything you would like to tell the viewers back home about your legislative session, about what to expect coming up in the future, in the off season of the legislature?
Okay. Well, I'm also going to be holding my senior advisory committee where they come together and tell me at least 1 or 2 good ideas for legislation. So that's something in the district that's coming up, and I'll tell you the dates too. And I want to say, like, thank you guys both too for coming out here and coming to the office here and experiencing District 91. And you're always welcome to come out here. I really enjoy it that we're doing it here.
Of course,
Yeah.
no, it's
This is a pleasure.
it's nice to
Yeah.
be in the atmosphere. It's you can get caught up in your bubble, but to see where the real work happens
Yeah.
is incredible. Well, we definitely are very thankful that Representative Slosberg is actually leaving in just a few short hours to Tallahassee for the special session called by the governor and the speaker. So we were so blessed to get this interview when we did. And thank you, Representative Slosberg, for your
Thank
time.
you.
And raise your voice. Is there anything you wanted to see happen in Tallahassee this year that didn't? If so, what was it? And raise your voice. Until next time, that's Stephanie Terra, that's Representative Slosberg, and I'm John Carter, your voice for all things politics.